Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another live stream. Thank you so much for everyone who was waiting for me, all of our members, subscribers, and viewers from all across the world. I can see that although I posted a very last-minute live stream, I still have a few people. Thank you so much for tuning in. I see we have people from Texas, Illinois, Florida, Canada, and Malaysia. So welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for tuning in, although it was very short notice. Apologies for that, but I'd rather be with you even if it's late. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I post live streams and videos regularly. If you prefer short form videos, you can go ahead to my video tab. These live streams are more for in-depth talk and analysis and an open space for the community to participate. In this live stream, I wanted to talk to you about, of course, the recent developments and how the main parties in question are viewing what's happening in these negotiations. Firstly, we have intensity. The Palestinian resistance released recent videos hitting Israeli tanks and Israeli forces really hard in Gaza. And Israel is, of course, continuing its crimes in Gaza and in Lebanon. In Lebanon, they had a strike killing dozens of people in this massacre in Nabatiyah yesterday, and they targeted a senior figure in Hezbollah, one of their, not top senior figures, but one of their military figures in Sur, if I'm not mistaken. And they are continuing to escalate both sides. In Gaza, the situation is difficult and is getting more difficult because we had a case reported for polio and disability of infants as well. These are things that haven't been there for a very long time. And with regards to the polio, Israel is very interested in deliberately spreading these viruses and these health problems in Gaza, because the United Nations told them, we only need 10 days to vaccinate the people. Give us 10 days, have a ceasefire for 10 days, let us vaccinate the people. They refuse to do that. And again, you're talking about a 10-month-old, one case of polio, and they don't want to allow the international health organizations to carry out vaccines. It's deliberate. It's all deliberate. It's all calculated. It's part of the genocide, part of making Gaza uninhabitable, part of making life difficult, as miserable as possible for the population. And in Lebanon, again, targeting civilian buildings as well. But again, the resistance both in Lebanon and in Gaza is escalating. We had an officer being killed. He was leading a brigade. Israel announced that he was killed in Gaza, although the Israeli army told the Israeli Broadcasting Authority yesterday that our military actions finished in Gaza. So the main military actions finished, and we told this to the political establishment, and now is the time for a ceasefire. However, if we want, we can go back to Gaza and, engage in another war, and based on the intel that we receive. Hezbollah also killed several Israeli troops with their strikes, and they are increasing their radius. This is something that we've been talking about all along, although none of that is the response for the assassination of Shukr in Hezbollah's case, right? They targeted Ayelet HaShahar. It's a place that they expanded to now. You're talking about civilian population there, areas that haven't been evacuated and that Israel does not consider to be part of the danger zones where they evacuate them and the population are entitled to government support. Yet, with all of that, people are talking about positive vibes in the ceasefire talks. And we had communication or statements from the parties who are the main players, when it comes to the Palestinian and the Iranian side. Hamas and the acting Iranian foreign minister. Firstly, the acting Iranian foreign minister, he said that by supplying the Zionists with war weapons, The US itself is an accomplice, not a neutral mediator. So I emphasized on using all capacities to force the Zionist aggression to stop killing and crimes in Gaza. Referring to the aggression and the criminal nature of the Zionists in Gaza, he said, I warned about the deceit and dishonesty of the criminal gang ruling Tel Aviv and their most important supporter, the United States, at the negotiating table. And following his call with the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Qatar, he said opinions were exchanged about the developments about the second day and the need to stop the genocide in Gaza and Israel's crimes in Gaza. Okay. We're understanding from Iran that they're not really buying it, but they haven't responded yet, so they're clearly giving time. Are they giving time because of the ceasefire, or are they giving time for their own purposes? That's arguable. It could be a combination of the two, but don't forget that we already had 2 weeks before these talks anyway, and we saw actions on the ground being taken, which means there's a level of activity happening to support the argument that they are delaying it for technical purposes, for logistical purposes, for strategic purposes, because they want to make sure that they are fully equipped and prepared, as their strike might instigate another Israeli attack that will have a snowball effect and drag the region to an all-out war, and potentially the whole world, because we already have so many global players in the region. When it comes to Hamas are also not viewing it in a positive manner. So there was a senior leading figure in Hamas who spoke with Al Jazeera. He said, we in the movement confirm our commitment to what we agreed on July the 2nd, which is based on the Biden Declaration and the Security Council Declaration. He called on mediators to pressure the occupation and oblige to implement what was agreed upon. He stressed that any agreement must guarantee the cessation of aggression against our people and the withdrawal from the Gaza Strip, and it must include urgent relief and reaching a deal to exchange prisoners. That was a senior source, and they did not quote or name the person. Okay, but we had another senior figure called Al-Mirdawi from Hamas, who made statements saying that Israel doesn't want a ceasefire. They constantly delay. And again, the same tone that we had from Iran, that they are deceitful, and Netanyahu constantly adds more conditions, which is true. This is what's actually happening. Although we're hearing about the talk about positive vibes and what have you, and then we're going to speak in Cairo. However, Benjamin Netanyahu added more conditions. He is still sticking to the conditions when it comes to the Philadelphia corridor and the Netzarim line, and his flexibility, right, to engage in war actions and genocide if phase 1 doesn't lead to an agreement on phase 2, so he can reignite the war like they did in the previous temporary ceasefire. And that was confirmed by the tens of thousands of Israelis on the streets today in Israel, calling Benjamin Netanyahu crime minister, and again blaming him for the delay. They're saying we cannot reach a deal because Benjamin Netanyahu is adding these conditions, and he constantly adds conditions when we are about to reach a deal. And look what happens. They expand attacks. They expand their barbarism, in particular in Lebanon. Look at that, even though Lebanon is a very sensitive place and you're awaiting response. When there's positive vibes in the talk. Okay, if there are positive vibes in the talk, we're not interested in vibes. I'm sorry, but I'm not interested in anyone's emotions or vibes and how they feel. We're interested in practical solutions on the ground. No one cares what you think or feel. Feeling positive, feeling negative. Who cares? People are suffering. They're going through a genocide, and there needs to be a solution. Has there been a breakthrough in anything from the negotiations? No, then don't tell me good vibes. If you feel good about them, feel good about it yourself. We don't care about that. We want something to be implemented. And the Iranian side and the Palestinian side, they're understanding that. They are understanding that. And we spoke about this supposed pressure that the United States is implementing on Israel yesterday, which is ridiculous. It's preposterous. You know, we had conversations that and reports that the Biden administration is applying pressure on Israel now to accept a ceasefire. You're applying pressure on Israel to accept a ceasefire, and you just okayed $20 billion in aid, dozens of F-15s, and more military aid, and whilst they were committing crimes against humanity. What are we talking about here? All right. So the Iranian side is not trusting what's happening. Hamas are not trusting what's happening, but Hamas are listening. Hamas are listening to what they have to say, but they're not endorsing anything because they are not in the ceasefire. And again, yesterday we spoke about the fact that Hamas not being in the actual ceasefire talks and these talks going ahead show fear from the Israeli and American side. Why? Because they thought that would also add more leverage when it comes to Iran and delaying the Iranian attack. And Joe Biden yesterday, he made some further statements claiming that, or saying that, asking that let no one in the region hinder the prospects of a ceasefire. And he was calling the mediators close the gaps. He called Qatar and Egypt, close the gaps. Please close the gaps. And Iran and anyone else, don't hinder the prospect. Don't hinder what's happening. So clearly, the Iranian side, the Palestinian side, they're not trusting what's happening. But the mediators and Israel and the United States, they're supposed to have another meeting in Cairo next week. Is it a tactic of delay? Yes, of course it could be a tactic to delay because we've seen this delay before. And the United States proved that it is capable of buying Israel time and enabling this genocide to continue. Because all they've been doing for the past 10 months is buying Israel more and more time. If anyone was genuine about applying pressure on Israel to try and stop it, the first thing you would do is completely halt your arms sales to Israel, right? Let alone further actions that can definitely stop it, okay? I'm talking about the basics. Stop supporting them with your arms, lift your political immunity that you're giving them, don't support them, and then tell me we're applying pressure. But don't fool the people by saying we're applying pressure. By what? By calling Netanyahu and swearing at him? He couldn't care less. And from Benjamin Netanyahu's perspective, if the cost of getting 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 billion means I have to go and act like I'm negotiating and pretend like I'm negotiating and sending a delegation, fine, no problem. You know, what's the problem? I'll go, I'll send people who don't have any powers, right, to go and talk, right, stay in hotels, have some nice food and go back. And I'm sitting here. Why? Because they don't have the authority to reach a deal. I need to authorize everything. And I can add any conditions that I want in any time and make it impossible to reach a deal. So you are covering up his crimes. That's why Iran know how the game is played. So does Hamas. They're saying that the United States is an accomplice. It's not a mediator. This is what I want to share with you in this live stream. And again, thank you so much, guys, for tuning in, even though it's quite a late live stream, at least European, Middle East time zones. In America, I'm sure you're okay. And welcome to another live stream. Dennis Huggins, thank you so much. Much appreciated for your super. If anyone has any comments or questions for me, if you wouldn't mind highlighting them so that I can address them quickly. Jimmy Eyes, Zionists are desperate. That's why they do this abuse. A losing fighter throws all punches as he goes down. Yes, and that has been evident from day one. From day one, the military defeat that they suffered from Hamas on the 7th of October. You're talking about taking down the most advanced division in the Israeli army, the Gaza division. They took down all of them in under 2 hours, right? They kidnapped commanders in the Israeli army. They blinded Israel, okay? And that's why Israel had to come up with this, well, not had to, but they decided to have this emotional and hate-filled response, and which doesn't make sense. Why? Because think about it from think about it from a supremacist perspective. Let's say Israel only cares about the Israeli lives, right? As they, always say, the Israelis and Israel, and they don't care. We already know that they don't care about any other lives, really, but they don't care about their own lives. That's where they're lying. But this is what I wanted to show you. If you care about the Israeli lives and you knew that they were kidnapped to Gaza, would you go and carpet bomb Gaza? Of course not. But then the evidence started to come out when the Israelis who survived the 7th of October, talking about the good treatment that they received from Hamas, surprisingly, and how it was the Israelis who were killing them and shooting their houses in Be'eri, Nir Oz, Re'im, how the Israeli helicopters shot the people in the Nova Festival, and how the pilots later confirmed that they were ordered to shoot at any vehicle going back to Gaza, regardless who was in it. Then the prisoners started to come out saying that we were targeted by the Israeli army, not once, but twice, but 5 and 10 times as well, right? And Hamas declared that 50 Israelis were killed in the first month. There was a policy of Benjamin Netanyahu to kill everyone, thinking that he can remove the leverage from Hamas, proving that they don't care about the Israeli lives as well. They use the people as cannon fodder, and they kill them. They deliberately kill them. They implemented the Hannibal Directive on multiple Israeli soldiers in Gaza. People in the Israeli army or who were in the Israeli army confirmed this, and we spoke about this on YouTube as well. So you're talking about a state of desperation. It's a death cult. It's a death entity. And they're striking left, right, and center. And now with these negotiations, although they are in their probably weakest point in history, they're trying to buy time. They're trying to buy time. And the United States is granting them time. Sure as hell, some of their other supporting governments are buying them time. Arab governments are giving them time with their lack of action and suppression of anything that supports Palestine in general, Arab regimes, because if you talk about the Arab population in general, they're very supportive of the Palestinian cause, like the international population, really. But it seems like the Palestinian side, like I said, and Iran, they are understanding this. Whether or not Iran is considering the negotiations as part of the delay, that's something else. But this is what's happening. Okay, let's go to this question. El-Karaki, thank you so much, my brother. Love you, dear brother. I love you too, my brother. God willing, I will see you when we build Palestine. The Zionist is done. You always have a place in Hebron with the Karaki family. Inshallah, my brother. Blessings to all of our brothers and sisters in Hebron. You know Hebron? Let me tell you something about Hebron. Some people don't know that. Hebron, you're talking about a population of 200,000 Palestinians. And Israel, and thanks again, my brother, by the way, for your generosity. And Israel has a squatting establishment that they call a settlement. Less than 1,000 squatters, racist to the core, controlling the 200,000 population in an apartheid regime, martial law on the population. Some hours of the day you can't move. They will shut down the whole field. They took down the cave of the patriarch, right? Masjid al-Ibrahimi. They go in and out whenever they want to, constantly torture people, kill people, imprison people for no reason, abuse them. This is the reality, and many people don't realize that. That's the situation in the West Bank, and Hebron is one of the biggest highlights because of the level of injustice that's happening there. So you have these people imposing themselves on the population, right? Terrorizing them on a regular basis. And every Israeli government used to support them. What are we talking about here? It's not the right wing of Israel supporting them. It's every government supporting them. Left, right, center, everyone was supporting this squatter establishment in the West Bank. Now, the only thing that they're doing is they are being very clear and honest about it. They are being very blatant. And guess what? That's good. Thank you for telling me your intentions. Don't hide it under the carpet, right? We have never seen a good example of Zionism anyway. It's not like there was a period where we thought, hold on a second, Zionism might work. There is no formula for Zionism. It's an abhorrent, racist, supremacist, terrorist ideology. Yet, many people across the world are free to embrace it. As a matter of fact, we saw attempts trying to criminalize the criticism of Zionism in some Western countries, didn't we? And again, thank you so much, my brother, for your super. Let's go to the next question. And thank you to our moderators. Thank you, Omar, for your moderation work. And TR4 Heck, yes, this was the report that we were talking about. And it's funny because they don't usually report things immediately, Israel, right? But they decided to do it. It seems like even the military establishment is trying to apply a bit more pressure. Firstly, with their statement yesterday, trying to pressurize Netanyahu, because, like, of course, you know that there are differences in the establishment in Israel, and that was evident since the beginning, by saying that the military actions have ended in Gaza, and we informed the political class. All nonsense, you know what I mean? And they said, oh, we got rid of the Rafah brigade of Hamas. Although they're fighting everywhere, they didn't get rid of anything. But they just want to try and apply some pressure, try to push Netanyahu to the corner and make him or force him, have more leverage on him to get a ceasefire. But that is not working. That isn't working. And Arif Chaudhry, why Iran isn't taking a firm action against Israel? Do you think Iran is worried if Israel lose, Iran will have no attention or importance in the region? No, I think their main calculations are purely based on what's about to happen next. In my opinion, that's the main calculation. Firstly, Iran is a big country. They said they will respond at any level. So we have reason to believe that they will respond. They might change their mind, who knows? But we have reason to believe that they will, because in April, they didn't say they will initially, but they ended up attacking in a historic move, right? That changed the equation. But now they know that this might be the final game. This might be the end game. So to them, they have to be prepared for everything. They have to be prepared for nuclear attacks on Iran, multiple fronts against them, although nothing was reported that they will participate against Iran, but they have to prepare for that. They know that. And we spoke about the nuclear threat that they received and their reply that we will respond with the same level, not confirming or denying that they have a nuclear bomb, but we know that they can get or might have a nuclear bomb or have it at their disposal whenever needs be, from North Korea, from Russia, from Pakistan, who knows, from so many countries they can have it. So I think they're purely calculating it about the day after that attack. Why? Because firstly, they said it's going to be hard. And if it's going to be hard, they're going to put Israel in a corner. The United States and other countries said, we'll support Israel defending itself, but not attacking. But Iran knows, and they heard confirmations from the prime minister and from the defense minister in Israel that if Iran does attack us, we will end up hitting them really hard like never before, and we will hit them with double the force. So they are preparing for all of this, of course, and they have their calculations. Sylvestra saying, thank you, Mahmoud. Was there an appearance statement from Sinwar himself after he's chosen as Hamas leader? Can't find it. No, we haven't seen any statement from Sinwar. The only report that we heard about him was several months back when they reported and Israeli intelligence sources confirmed that he went over the ground in Gaza, but Israel didn't target him. Supposedly they had intel information about him and they were threatening to kill him many times. And these were confirmed by Hamas that Sinwar, he was in Gaza, checking the situation over the ground, making sure that the coordination is okay, checking on his fighters and stuff like that. But a statement from him, no. Israel released a video claiming to be belonging to Yahya Sinwar. However, it was like from the back, and there was no verification of that. So we cannot, of course, and that's Israel, hyper-pathological liars. A new glow, Brother Mahmoud, who flight that Russian Sukhoi 35 Iranians or Russians? Well, it could be both. It could be both. And we heard reports that they have been receiving training on them. Of course, when it comes to these fighter jets, sometimes you need a year's training. Was there training taking place before? Who knows? But again, some sources say that they received them. We haven't, of course, had an official confirmation. I wouldn't be surprised if they had them, because also Russia knows that this might be the end game. It might be the end game that will escalate everything. They know that, and that's why we have these Ukrainian invasions to Russia. That's not a Ukrainian move, because the Ukrainians themselves claimed we're not interested in occupying Russian territory, yet they go and occupy. Why'd you occupy? All of a sudden, when Shoigu goes to Iran and hands them everything that they need, they're trying to apply pressure on Russia to, take a step back from the Middle East. The Regal Woman, thank you so much for your super. You said the super chats keep being censored. Here you are. I'm glad you're not censored. Thank you so much for your contribution. Gulliberg is saying, Mahmoud, I saw online genocide cartel conducting air-to-air refueling tests over Jordan since the negotiations started. Do you think it's true? Well, it could be true. Why? Because firstly, Jordan has been a defense field when it comes to Israel. They defended Israel to intercept some of the Iranian missiles. And Jordan has cooperation, of course, with the United Kingdom and America. Listen, many of these leaders of the Arab states, where did they graduate? In British military academies, in the US, this is where they graduate. So their whole philosophy is based on the United States and the UK. You're not talking about people who, in general, of course, not all of them. And I wouldn't be surprised, because they have agreements with them. They opened their airspace for defense. So why shouldn't they, in terms of the view of the United States and America? You need to enable to do that. However, Iran warned from any airspace being used for an attack against it. And Jordan had to declare afterwards that we will not be a war zone, we will not be a battleground, and we will intercept anything in the Jordanian skies, whether it's coming from Iran or from Israel. How true is that? Will it be implemented when it's about to happen? Because, the same way they can monitor Iran can monitor them. And don't forget, everything will be monitored from the minute it leaves Israel. Why? Because Russia is in Syria and Iran is in Syria, and they're all over it. And they have radars and they have, access to satellites. They know what's happening. Apart from, of course, the aircraft carriers, they're monitored as well. There are pictures being taken of them. So, and Israel, despite all of its efforts to, hide information when it comes to GPS and satellite, that all has a back door. Okay, Vladimir Putin's called Jackson Hinkle today. Salam Mahmoud, why is Iran threatened to attack Israel? USA increased the presence of troops and sends aircraft carriers and stickers ready to hit Iran. That's firstly psychological war. I'm gonna try and intimidate you, because in war, the classical ways of war is to achieve your objectives without fighting and without sending your armies, instilling fear in your enemy. So that's number one. Number two, generally, if things go all out, the declared role is to intercept. Like they were planning, the carriers, and the United States was planning to intercept missiles through some of its fighter jets, not just the air defense systems that are on the ground. So they were planning to start intercepting Iranian missiles as soon as they get launched from Iran and from other places as well through their fighter jets. They're not just going to rely on air defense systems that are based on the ground, because they are expecting a very large attack. And again, in terms of intimidation or what have you, any country has the right to reject such presence and act of, muscle flexing next to it. But the United States is used to doing that all across the world. They'll go to the South China Sea with aircraft carriers and complain about a Chinese fighter jet. What the hell are you doing there? What the hell are you doing there? But that's the typical arrogant approach of the empire, right? Of the unilateral power, monopoly across the world. The whole world is our backyard. We need to make sure our trade routes are safe and everything goes back to America. And so that's why they do that. Marian, thank you so much, my friend from Berlin. Pleasure. Thank you so much for your super. And greetings to everyone listening from Germany. Let's go to your next one. Chris, thank you so much for your comment. Mustafa Jubarti, Mahmoud, did you see the tactic that Israel is adopting now by targeted assassinations by drones? Today they target 2 Palestinians, Jenin. Their ground forces are being wiped out so rapidly. Yeah, I mean, the West Bank, firstly, they surprised us in the level of armed resistance that they have. They've caused a big headache to Israel. Big losses, talking about, tens of millions worth of equipment from hundreds destroyed, side bombs, all sorts of things. How do they get it? Where do they get it? Who coordinates with them? I don't know. Because Israel is present all across the West Bank, and they have the Palestinian Authority. Clearly, some people from the Palestinian Authority play with the resistance, and they are capable of giving Israel a headache to a level where Israel had to use force that they haven't used in the past 2 decades in the West Bank. With regards to the drones, that's not surprising. They send quadcopters to Gaza to shoot children. Yesterday, there was a report that one of their quadcopters, they go in markets and shoot people. They don't want people to have any sort of stability or sense of normality anywhere. So they go in markets and they randomly shoot. They shot a child. A child. So apart from the over 17,000 children, So this is what they do. And again, that's abhorrent. But the quadcopters who shoot left, right, and center in these bombs, what they're doing in Gaza, that's even worse. Bill, do you think Milikovsky has a cyanide pill in his mouth or a gun in his desk in the bunker? Do you think he has a body double plan to flee the US or something? What I do know is that the top figures and the elite, even if we want to talk about an all-out option, people are talking about the Samson option, what have you, these people will sacrifice anyone to live. Isn't Benjamin Netanyahu sacrificing Israelis to survive? The first people Benjamin Netanyahu is sacrificing are the Israelis. He's sending them to die for him for no reason. He's not achieving anything, but the bodies of Israelis are going to Gaza, slaughtered, back. Over 100,000 wounded and killed. And they can try and hide as much as possible. Forget that. Over 100,000 casualties, killed and wounded. And they know. That's why they flee. That's why his son is in the US, in Miami, So he's protecting himself and his family. He's giving his son diplomatic immunity. And the Israelis are going to fight for him like imbeciles. or at least many of them. Of course, they brainwash the population, talking about one of the most brainwashed state on earth, states, Israel, because you have to brainwash the population, indoctrinate this hate and supremacy from a very young age for them to be able to, tolerate what's happening. There are people who are aware of it, no question about that. But in general, how is he able to send people to go and die? He's already sacrificing them. So, and he will have a plan. He will have a plan to flee. He's probably preparing for that day. He will have more than one country willing to welcome him. We have many genocidal supporting countries across the world. And when many criminals had their countries taken down, or they had a significant political shift, they found refuge in lots of places across the world. It doesn't matter what they committed, the dictatorship, slaughter, genocide, whatever it is. Kate is saying, why is Hezbollah, Houthis, Hamas following the rules of war according to Islamic guidance? This is the war which is different. Israel has crossed the line. The only way to stop is all out war. Well, firstly, you're talking about people who take their religion very seriously. Even when we heard about the Hamas fighters entering Israel, some of the Israeli women, one of them came on live Israeli television, and then Israel knew, they shouldn't bring these people on live television. She started to say, this guy came in and he told me, and she was speaking like this, he went in and he told me, don't worry, I'm not here to hurt you, we're Muslims, we follow the Quran, we're targeting the army here. And one of them asked, can I have a banana? So they were surprised by this behavior multiple times. So you talk about people who are true to their faith. Now, one might argue, Israel is committing a genocide recklessly against everyone. And what are you doing? You still need to stick to your principles. Israel is raping prisoners. Should Hamas rape prisoners? No, of course not. That's why when Abu Ubaidah recently said that one of the Hamas fighters killed an IDF prisoner in Gaza after Israel killed 2 of his children. He just lost it 10 months in. He said, this is against our values and belief, and we will implement stricter measures so that doesn't happen. We need to protect prisoners. That's why you see the Israeli prisoners leaving and smiling and hugging some of the Palestinian fighters too. But Israel is a depraved nation. The Palestinian resistance and the Lebanese resistance and the Yemeni resistance, they are honorable people of faith. What are we talking about? They're incomparable with a depraved nation, a depraved state that commits a genocide against infants, an infanticide and destruction, depraved of anything. They are incomparable. You are talking with genuine people of God, God-fearing people, pious people, and people who Satan is ashamed to smell them. So I think people need to still have values, even if your enemies are committing, you know what I mean? There are certain things that you cannot justify. Simple, end up, what? Israel crossed every single, does that mean, you cross every, they had to lie that the Palestinian resistance, they beheaded babies and they raped women, all lies, garbage. That was debunked from within Israel. That even President Biden had to take it back after he said it. But they had a ready-made package to legitimize what they're about to do. Mm-hmm. But no, you're talking about people, when you talk about the resistance, they are honorable people of morals with a just cause. What are we talking about? They're incomparable to this depraved nation. So I hope that elaborates. That was from Kate. And Aini Anwar, thank you so much for your super. And Riza, thank you so much for that. And Shafiq, welcome to membership, my friend. Let's see where your next question is. Marvin, how do fighters in the West Bank get weapons in their tunnel system? Interesting. We haven't heard about a sophisticated tunnel system in the West Bank, but I'm sure they might have something. And if they would have a tunnel system, they'd be sure as hell not reveal it. But what we do know is that there is a level of collaboration, undeniably, from some elements in the Palestinian Authority's armed forces. Undeniably, to a level where one of them participated in fighting with the resistance. Israel killed him. And they were mad because he was given a state-honored like funeral by the Palestinian Authority. So these people, listen, the people have suffered so much that they will find every single way to hurt the people who only cause them misery and destruction and barbarism. They will find any way. And Israel as a state continues, right? Instead of looking to solve the core root cause of the problem, they will look at it only from a security perspective. Oh, they're killing us, kill them back. Why is it going? Why is there something called resistance? Why is it? It's because there is injustice, there is inequality, there is deprivation of basic human rights and liberties. That's why a historic injustice that's as shiny as the sun, right? So they will find their ways. They will find their ways. En Beizai, the world is with the resistance. Why not seize the moment to free Palestine once and for all? Well, I can tell you a couple of things here. Firstly, Israel is in its worst period in history. That's coming from statements from Israel. Talks about the end of Zionism, the end of what they label as the Jewish state, the dream that the Zionists were selling them. They are talking about an existential threat from the beginning. They are talking about the 1948 independence war. They are talking about the toughest period. And they're clicking all of the wrong buttons. Why? Because they have a backer called the United States administration and a couple of depraved governments across the world. And they have what? They have the silence of the Arab regimes. That is the biggest contributor. Why? Because without silent, quiet, and I'm talking about silent in actions, though I don't care what you're saying as a country with power. People like us, normal people, what can we do apart from talk and, criticize and, online activity, protest here and there, boycott, this and that. We're talking about people with a state power to use some leverage, some financial leverage, some pressure, some diplomatic pressure, some military pressure. Okay. They are there. They're doing nothing. Although this is a chance to take down once and for all Zionism as a whole, right? You still have these problems. So when we talk about the world population, of course, they support the liberation, they support the justice for the Palestinian people, but how much of that desire is being represented at a political level that is able to make a change? In the Arab world, you hardly have anything. As a matter of fact, the countries that are actually, the movements that are actually supporting within certain countries don't have this official status globally. What, Hezbollah from Lebanon, Ansarullah from Yemen, and the Iraqi resistance movements, the only country supporting wholeheartedly by words and by action is Iran. No one else, officially, at a state level, a people level, support level, everything. Iran only, don't forget that. That's why you will see a lot of people, a lot of these Arab regimes, they have a problem with Iran. Why? Because they're putting them to shame, right? And they'll tell you everything, that it's all a show. We don't believe them. They're tied with this. They'll come with any. What are you doing? Okay, have a bit of shame. Have a bit of shame, a little bit of shame. What are you doing? So despite the fact that there is this momentum, there is still the layer of protection. The layer of protection coming from, silent to a level of complicit Arab regimes, unlimited American support, and a level of cover from some of the Western powers, the genocide cartel. That's why they're buying time. And I mean, I'm not sure how much it can work. I mean, they've always been buying time, but they haven't been trading well with buying time. And let's go to your next participation. North E, thank you so much for your super. Salam, brother Mahmoud. So a triangle sign on a celebratory pizza. What is that meaning of that symbol? Well, the Palestinian resistance, they use this red triangle as a symbol in their videos. So I think it's just like a symbol that they use when they carry out an attack or something. I saw that video. They talk about some candies and stuff they were using from videos that we saw released in Gaza. Jack Ayub, Wesley Clark said 15 years ago he walked into the Pentagon to say hi to everybody. One commander said we have 5 wars to go, Yemen, and end up with Iran. Look, if we talk about, do you remember the new Middle East plan that was promoted by Condoleezza Rice and the documents that were released at the time that spoke about Libya, Somalia, Syria, Iran? And we saw that taking place bit by bit. This was the aim. However, certain geopolitical developments prevented them from going all out. And add to that, their grave failure when it came to Iraq and their humiliation when it comes to Afghanistan. They spent trillions of dollars on these wars from taxpayers' money, killing 2 million in these 2 countries. Again, mass murder, genocide. And in Afghanistan, they just decided to withdraw. Okay, Iraq, they have a couple of thousand, but again, they left. They used all of their old weapons, renewed the weapon stock, stole what they need to steal. In Iraq, they dealt with opium crops, right? They were taking them in CIA planes to the United States, because the military-industrial complex is always aligned to an extent with the pharma cartel as well. So they did that in Afghanistan and Iraq, and they have plans. I mean, to this day, you'll have some people in the United States pushing for a war against Iran. What did Iran do to you? What did Iran even do to you? You are the ones picking your noses all across the world like a bully. And you don't like it when someone stands up to you and slaps you across the face, right? But they're used to this bully approach, this global bully approach. And, when they get attacked, oh no, they're the terrorists. Terror who? Causing mass murders across the world, and they're the great grandfathers of terrorism, and they don't like it when someone goes and stands up for them. You are the one coming from across the seas to kill our people. Iran, you're talking about the occupation of Iraq. Okay, well, you're at my borders. Likewise now with East Europe, way before the Ukrainian war. Forget about Ukraine. Before Ukraine. Didn't they agree with the Russians they wouldn't expand east? And they constantly have been expanding east. China, every single country surrounding China that they can have a deal with to apply more pressure on China and use it as a hub to potentially attack China, they'll do it. Right? To a level where in Afghanistan, it was reported that it was also to do with China too. And they, they go and tell you, oh no, Iran. Iran is a threat. A threat to what? To Israel. What's Israel? Israel is your colony in the Middle East. It's a planted fake entity based on a pseudo-history, a pseudo-narrative, and pseudo-people claiming to have right over a land, telling you land without people to people without a land. They used to sell this lie. So that's been happening for a very long time now. But again, the equation is changing. And Riza, thank you so much, said ground invasion, the time is ripe so that Jews, Christians, and Muslims can live in peace in Palestine. You know, the funny thing is, the time was ripe a very long time ago. But some of these governments that are supporting Israel are keen on keeping a supremacist neo-colonial entity. They're going away from Africa, they're withdrawing from Africa. And funny enough, when they withdraw from Africa, you start having these African nations uniting together and dealing with Russia and dealing with China, who come and invest and support them. And China lifted 50 billion in debt a few years back, whilst they have an enslavement history in Africa. And they know that the most cost-effective and straightforward solution in Palestine is one democratic state, equal rights for everyone. Why are you still keen on supporting this supremacy, this Jewish supremacy? They call it a Jewish state, a Jewish and democratic, a Jewish supremacy. Jews first, then everyone else is below us. Christians below us, Muslims below us, Palestinians, everyone is below us. Even the Druze, the Druze community inside of Israel. And although not all of them are with the state of Israel, but in general, you know, you're talking about a community that built a bond, those who are inside of Israeli territory, most of them, again, you know, we don't always conclude. They were fuming when Israel introduced the nation state law in 2018, saying what? Israel is the nation state of the Jewish people. The nation state of the Jewish people. We are the people who own the land. The West, what are you doing? The West. You always talk about democracy and equality and human rights and women's rights and this and that. Why is it so difficult to implement in Palestine? That's why even before all of this happened, we always used to say Palestine is the moral compass. Show me what's your position on that. You don't tell me you go and support this and that, but when it comes to the Palestinians and Palestine, oh, you know, I'm not sure. No, you know, they are the chosen people. You know, they're God's chosen people, right? They even manipulated their religious understanding. So, again, that's also changing now. That's also changing. Kate is saying, is the ceasefire talk a cover for Israel to prepare their next stage, waiting for more toys from the head of the serpent? USA waiting for a coalition, UK, France, Italy. Well, what it surely does is provide them with time. Israel loves buying time. And as a matter of fact, they started to use the time buying method as a way to continue existing as a policy. Firstly, why do they buy time? They buy time because they know they are a state of thieves, so they need to buy time. That's why they love it when an Arab state signs a peace treaty with them. Oh, someone recognized that. Someone recognized us. Why don't they like us? They always say, why does the world hate us? Ignoring what they're doing and what they have been doing for the past century. So they buy time. They want to buy time, and the US is buying them time. More toys, well, they are. See, they're getting more toys. You know, likewise with Iran too, they're getting more support. And waiting for a coalition with UK, France, Italy, the United States, this is the thing that I personally, at a personal level, doubt. A coalition for attack. A coalition for defense, okay, fine. But a coalition of attack, no. Why? Because we saw the US aircraft carrier coming to the Middle East, to the Mediterranean, excuse me, to supposedly deter Hezbollah and Iran. Imagine a US carrier coming for Gaza initially. Imagine this Gaza. They have a secret in Gaza. There's a secret. But anyway, they came to deter Iran and Hezbollah. They left. And it was still they were still attacking. Hezbollah still has conducted their biggest attacks. Now, and Iran still has an attack. And Biden told Netanyahu, we won't participate with you, but we'll defend you. And when they defended them, he told them, we defended you well. You won, take the win. As in trying to shut Benjamin Netanyahu down, shut your mouth. But going and taking people to support them, Israel is unable to recruit Israelis to support them. The Israeli army is in the biggest trouble it has ever been in its history. Over 100,000 in total, we're talking about casualties, wounded and dead, disabled, a defeated army, a defeated nation, split everywhere. Why should, and again, I said the other day, if you're a serving American or a soldier or from the UK or whatever, going to the army for whichever reason, some of them go for financial and economic purposes, some of them come from, poor backgrounds, and to them, the army is the exit. And some of them genuinely feel like they want to serve their nation, and they don't really look at the overall grand scheme of things and the bigger picture and how they're being used and deployed and who they serve, right? Are they serving their nation or are they serving the interests of very few people? Saying that, any person from these countries who would look at Israel would think, no, I'm not going to go and fight for them. Why? Because even if you have been brainwashed to a very high level, who doesn't have access to social media? Who doesn't have access to X to go and see what's happening? And one site is enough to put you off going to fight on their behalf. When the prime minister's own son is not fighting for Israel. That was from Kate. George, Mahmoud, will Turkey get involved in the war? I personally think when it comes to Turkey, if you talk about military participation, it will only be in a case of a direct attack on Turkish soil or Turkish interest abroad that Turkey would consider to be Turkish. Embassy, consulate, some of their forces abroad or what have you. We heard a lot of militant talk from Erdogan. He threatened Israel with military action with an invasion as well. But Turkey is tied to the NATO. And although they spoke and although they provide a very high level of support for the Palestinian people and they support the resistance, and they don't shy away from criticizing the West's hypocrisy when it comes to labeling the resistance, for example, they say, no, they're freedom fighters, they are people who struggle, they go to liberate their land, all of that is good. But when it comes to military participation, I think they will only participate if Turkey as a state is under attack, not before that. Because if they wanted to attack before that, they have every reason under the sun to attack, including by international law. Under UN resolutions, you have the right to have a preemptive strike on a reckless terrorist country committing crimes against humanity. You're entitled to do that. If you read enough in the books of the United Nations and international law, you will find an excuse to attack. But they did it. No one did. Although they have the right. They have the right even if Israel hasn't attacked them, by the way. But they didn't do that. And again, you're talking about ties with the NATO. And they are trying to play also the mediator position. I'm sure they wanted to participate in mediating alongside Qatar and Egypt. But again, even the mediation is dictated. Even the mediation is dictated. Marvin Vergas, 2006 invasion of Lebanon. Did Hezbollah have support from Iran or other nations? Was it just Hizb fighting Zio devils? Any foreign fighters help Hezbollah? Well, first and foremost, this resistance is a lonely game. Usually you'll have the pinnacle of the people doing that type of thing, because it involves lots of sacrifices, lots of personal sacrifices, and the potential death. And again, you're talking about people who are carrying their they call it kafan in Arabic, the thing that they put you in when you die, with them, prepared to die. So it's a lonely thing. However, there are people in Lebanon and outside of it who support them. Firstly, Iran and Syria. Syria handed Hezbollah weapons for free. Iran supports them through Syria again. And inside of Lebanon, there are various movements who participated in that war. One of them is called Quwat al-Fajr. They are Sunni, right? Or with my reservation of the Sunni and Shia terms, I don't like them. Movement in Syria, in Lebanon. There is an Arab pan-Arabist party, Syrian pan-Arabist party. They used to fight with them. Another movement called the Amal movement, alongside a couple of other movements who actually fought in Lebanon in 2006. It wasn't just Hezbollah, but Hezbollah is at the forefront because they have most of the power, they have the popularity, they have the presence, and they have the support. So the other movements, of course, they coordinate with them. Like a similar manner with Hamas in Gaza. They're not the only movement. Okay, there's a bit bigger diversification in Gaza than in Lebanon, but Hamas are kind of leading the way, but they have a coordination between 13 other resistance groups. Like in Gaza, you're talking about nationalist movements, secular, leftist movements, PFLP, DFLP, and other fighting movements as well. Foreign fighters, I haven't heard of foreign fighters helping Hezbollah in 2006 in the battle itself. They might have had advisors and support, but the people at the forefront, there's more than enough people who are willing to go to the forefront in Palestine and in Lebanon. That's not something to be worried about. Now they have the capacity to, if everything breaks out. Firstly, they have enough forces. That's number one, and they have a level to protect them. If Gaza had a level to protect its own fighting capabilities, Hezbollah will have at a higher capability, most likely. But if needs be, Hezbollah are able to bring over 1 million fighters to Lebanon. I wouldn't say tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands. Hezbollah, you will have over 1 million people going to fight with Hezbollah. In the early days of the war, we had people from the Iraqi resistance movements on the borders with Israel sending a sign, a message. Yemen, they will go. Iraqis, they will go. Iranians, they will go. Everyone can go out because you have land routes, you have air routes, you have routes from the sea. With Lebanon, it's a completely different story. If they need to, again, they might not need to. Why? Because the people, they want to be at the forefront, firstly in Lebanon, and they are the ones who are there. They are the sons of the land, and they would be at the best capacity to defend themselves. But if needs be, if an all-out war breaks out, Hezbollah are able to bring over 1 million people to fight with them, unlike this pariah state, unable to have its own population fighting for it. Why? Because Hezbollah and the Palestinian resistance and the Lebanese resistance and all of these resistance movements in the region, they act, but first and foremost, the Palestinian resistance, they act based on just causes. The truth is with them. They're on the right side. They are the victims of this aggression that has been imposed on them, right, for the past century. And the other side, they are a state of thieves who had to fake history, to fake names, to fake everything to try and justify and legitimize their existence. And that was from Marvin. Thank you so much for your question. Wendy is saying, Mahmoud, could you talk about MBS and what Saudis are up to? Well, it's interesting. I spoke about the Political report the other day where it was quoted that Mohammed bin Salman told the Americans, I'm afraid, I might be assassinated if I have a peace treaty with Israel. Look what happened to Anwar al-Sadat. He was assassinated. You didn't help him. So how can you help me? That could be stemming from, a correct notion. When you talk about the Saudi government, they are, we had reports from the resistance, from Lebanon. Okay, let me tell you this. Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, the Secretary General of Hezbollah, in 2020, he had an interview with Al-Mayadeen Network, in which he said that the Saudi regime ordered to kill me. They were in the United States. They said, we want Nasrallah killed. If that leads to an all-out war with Israel, we'll pay the price. To that level. Who said that? The Secretary General of Hezbollah. So you need to understand that and what role the regime is playing, okay? What it's stemming from. If you look at the actions and what we've seen so far, you would be able to understand where the Saudi regime stands. With regards to deals and no deals and this and that, they would look for what serves them, what serves the ruling power. All of these projects, attracting tourism, deals, dragging more investments, trying to diversify and base their economy on other things than oil. But the last thing they would want is anything to do with these resistance movements or what have you. As a matter of fact, if you look at Saudi mainstream media, Saudi mainstream media and some of the religious scholars in Saudi Arabia, they'll tell you it's haram to support the Palestinian resistance, right? And, mainstream media always publishing propaganda and lies as if you're listening to Israeli mainstream media. So you're talking about a country that has no interest in any of this. Their minds are with their own material things. When you talk about the ruling class, the luxuries that they're surrounded by, and to a very large extent, they are detached from many people, even in Saudi Arabia, right? The regime is very authoritarian, they imprison so many people in Saudi Arabia, Saudis who advocate for reform and what have you, and not massive critics of the government even. It's not like someone says, go and take them down or anything of the sort. There are some scholars in Saudi Arabia and some figures that have been in prison for so long under these false accusations, just for calling for certain reforms and what have you. And they just don't want anything. They don't want a headache. They don't want wars. They don't want any of that. But when it comes to other Arab states, this is what the Arab regimes are good at. When you talk about another Arab state, they will start flexing their muscles. All of a sudden, muscles flexed. You terror supporting this. We will do this to you in Yemen. Boom, right? Egyptian government in Libya, bang. They're very good at attacking other Arab countries. But when you talk about Israel, as if nothing's happening. Oh, no, we condemn what's happening. We call on the international community to apply a little bit more pressure, things are not working, we need to get more aid in. Oh, where did your muscle flexing go? No muscle flexing. No, not even flexing, right? Not even barking. So that's what's happening. Marvin, thank you so much for that. Much appreciated. Kate said, report said Israeli doctors are leaving due to economic, not to genocide. What a shame Israeli doctors lost their humanity. It's about time they leave stolen Palestine for God. Look, it's not just doctors in Israel. Firstly, there are the conditions to do with doctors inside of Israel. And don't forget, many of the doctors, many people who work in the healthcare sector in Israel are Palestinian citizens of Israel. But when it comes to the people leaving Israel in general, you're talking about people leaving for many reasons. And the number one, the first and foremost reason, a collapse. There's an all-out collapse. There's lack of certainty. There's lack of stability. There's recklessness. All of these things, they haven't had any sign that things are improving. To them, things went from bad to worse. The Israelis were in the streets fighting and protesting against this judicial reform. And they were saying that Netanyahu is turning this into a dictatorship. He wants to control the judicial system and apply pressure. And then this came, and he didn't even get rid of his plans to have a judicial reform after this finishes. So what's left? You already had online groups in Israel called Migrating Together, for example, on Facebook, on other platforms, discussing which other country shall we go to. Which country has like low rents or, good income, stability, prices are good, financial opportunities. They used to chat together, where should we migrate together? You had people criticizing the government back then, even from the military establishment. Now, what's left? What's left? Israel is viewed as a criminal entity globally, unappealing to anyone to do business with. Boycotting campaigns are succeeding like never before. And there is no hope in the horizon. It's not as if the people in power are shifting or, there's a change. Look, we did this for a while, we made a mistake. They're not even giving a hopeful tone for the future. And by doing that, what are they doing? They're keeping the paranoia inside of Israel. The Israeli state now is paranoid in general. People are on Xanax and what have you type of drugs. Petrified. And again, apart from those who left in their millions. The Shikoma, is it true that Hamas launched rockets in the south of Parai state recently? Yes, they did. As a matter of fact, central Israel with M90 missiles. These are some of Hamas strategic missiles. And they sent 5 missiles, I think, yesterday. What does that tell you? They still have missile capabilities. They still have strategic capabilities. They still have attack capabilities. Not just defense capabilities. They're not just defending. They're also attacking. Meaning, Israel failed everywhere. They failed militarily, although they committed the biggest barbaric act of genocide in the 21st century, landed more TNT than the United States in Iraq, right? 80,000 tons of TNT, the equivalent of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 nuclear bombs that were that landed on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. What are we talking about? And they still fail. What does that tell you? What does that tell the Israeli person? It's not working. It isn't working. Military power is not working. All of this talk on eliminating Hamas that we used to ridicule from the beginning, it's a recipe for disaster, a recipe for failure, saying I'm going to eliminate Hamas. You're never going to eliminate Hamas. You can't. How can you? It's an idea. It's resistance. Resistance for what? For your existence, for your oppressive existence, for your genocidal, criminal, terrorist existence on the land of the Palestinian people, oppressing them for all of this time. So to them, there is no hope in the horizon. Benjamin Netanyahu is not giving any hope. He's not showing any signs of backing down and trying to reach a solution. And that's what's happening. And Ray, thank you so much. Let's see if we have anything else before we wrap up. Cisco saying about the ultra-Orthodox being inducted to the Israeli army. That's failing massively. And we had more and more protests. A couple of weeks ago, I posted a video about them go storming into Tal HaShomer base in Tel Aviv, one of the biggest bases in Israel, not the biggest base in Israel, right? So it's not working. The religious figures came up with further statements. Nothing is working. Nothing is working. And Fartun, thank you so much for your super set. Salam Mahmoud, can you have a podcast with Whitney Webb to discuss the connections Mossad, the shadow government in the US, Silicon Valley? Also, the propaganda around Iran's delay is funny. Thank you so much for that. I'll look into that for you. Thank you so much. No problem. And Arif, thank you so much as well for your super. And thank you so much, everyone else, for your participation. Sorry if I'm unable to reach all of the comments. We try and just reach the main ones, but I think we have Cisco is saying, did China say they will rebuild Gaza? I think I didn't hear that directly, but I wouldn't be surprised if they take a big role because they are very efficient and advanced when it comes to rebuilding pretty quickly. But, you'll probably have people competing now over contracts because, when it comes to the rebuilding, companies make money. But I think they might have a role. I haven't heard that they, has to have certain exclusivity or what have you. So many countries will participate. Many countries will participate, and a lot of countries will be funding Gaza. And we hope that all of this will end and it will be rebuilt fairly quickly. We'll end it up there. Okay, guys, thank you so much for tuning in for another live stream. Thank you for tuning at a late notice as well, although I started this live stream almost at midnight. Sorry if I haven't read all of your comments, but I appreciate all of you and all of your participation and all of your support. Thank you so much for everyone who sent supers. I really highly appreciate your ongoing support. Dennis Huggins, El Karaki, The Regal Woman, Marion Thim, Aini Anwar, Riza, Shafiq Sha'rani, welcome to supporter. North E, Riza, Marvin Vergas, Rail Husseini, Fartoon, Ali, and Arif Chaudhry. Thank you so much for all of your support. I might have another video after this, not guaranteed though. If not, hopefully tomorrow I'll be with you. Apart from that, enjoy the rest of your weekend, day, night, dawn, depending on where you are. And stay blessed, everyone. And I'll see you soon in the next video. Take care. Salam, everyone.